the yak situation?
So, Mr. President, occasionally we have updates from the farm or the ranch, and I'm sure anybody would be welcome. You've had, I guess it's Cody yak up there and that was sculpted off of a white yak that was on our ranch for several years. And actually, one of his offspring is up here in the picture. That's the second one in the back there. You can see her name is Yanni, and then Yolanda is the front one, and she's the front one. And we've got Y names for quite a few yak. But the president asked, Mr. President, you asked about the pink nose. Well, a pink nose yak, black and white with a pink nose, is called a royal, and many royals are deaf. So if you're ever in the presence of a pink-nosed yak, i.e. black and white with a pink nose, and they're not responding to your vocal screams of joy or fear, it's because they can't hear you. They think you're wanting to see them or something. They're coming towards you. They think you're welcoming them, not warning them off. So the uniqueness is this one is deaf. The one Yolanda is deaf. Yanni can hear, and she can literally hear the milk bucket at the back porch when we're on the front porch. That's how well she can hear. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, thank you, Senator Barlow, and thank you, Yolanda, for the picture there. All right. Senator Salazar, let me see what you got.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to notify the body, there will be a joint conference committee on Senate File 69, homeowners property tax exemption, at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning in room 113. Just a reminder that I, Senator McEwen, and Senator Guru will be representing the Senate position. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Go get him. All right, signing of enrolled acts. Man, look at this stack here. We're up to Senate Enrolled Act number 23.
Senate Enrolled Act number 23, being original Senate File 77, compelled speech is not free speech. An act relating to the administration of government.
I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 23, being original Senate File 77. I have so signed. Congratulations, Senator Hutchings. Senate Enrolled Act number 24.
Senate Enrolled Act number 24, being original Senate File 4, an act, State Park Peace Officers Definition and Scope of Authority, an act relating to criminal procedure.
I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 24, being original Senate File 4. I have so signed. Senate Enrolled Act number 25.
Senate Enrolled Act number 25, being original Senate File 61, Pollution Control Property Tax Exemption Applicability, an act relating to environmental quality.
I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 25, being original Senate File 61. I've so signed. Senate Enrolled Act number 26.
Senate Enrolled Act number 26, being original Senate File 82, Omnibus Water Bill Planning, an act relating to water development projects.
I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 26, being original Senate File 82. I've so signed. Senate Enrolled Act number 27.
Senate Enrolled Act number 27, being original Senate File 130, Emergency Assistance Immunity, Mental Health Services, an act relating to civil procedure.
I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 27, being original Senate File 130. I have so signed. Senate Enrolled Act number 28.
Senate Enrolled Act number 28, being original Senate File 143, Public Monies Deposits in Credit Unions, an act relating to public funds.
I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 28, being original Senate File 143. And so signed. Senate Enrolled Act number 29.
Senate Enrolled Act Number 29, being original Senate File 151, monthly ad valorem tax distribution amendments, an act relating to taxation and revenue.
I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 29, being original Senate File 151. I'm so signed. All right, messages from the House.
From the House of Representatives, Mr. President, the following messages are dated February 24, 2025. Message number 346, concurrence requested. Senate File 75, Coroner Investigations, Disposition of Decedent's Property, passed on third reading in an amended form. Ayes 60, excused 2. Message number 348, concurrence requested. Mr. President, Senate File 114, Missing Persons Reporting Requirement, passed on third reading in an amended form. Ayes 60, excused 2. The House respectfully asks the Senate to concur by adopting amendments. Message number 353, third reading failed. Mr. President, Senate File 72, Summer Vacation Preservation Act, failed to pass the House on third reading. Ayes 5, noes 52, excused 5. Message number 342, concurrence passed. Mr. President, the House did concur on Senate amendments to House Bill number 42, Regulation of Surgical Abortions. Ayes 55, noes 6, excused 1. Message number 343, Joint Conference Committee report adopted. Mr. President, the House adopted Joint Conference Committee number 1 report on Senate File 77, compelled speech is not free speech. Ayes 54, noes 6, excused 2. Message number 344, third reading passed. Mr. President, Senate File 4, State Park Peace Officers Definition and Scope of Authority, passed the House on third reading. Ayes 40, noes 20, excused 2. Message number 345, Mr. President, Senate File 61, Pollution Control Property Tax Exemption Applicability, passed the House on third reading. Ayes 57, noes 3, excused 2. Message number 347, Mr. President, Senate File 82, Omnibus Water Bill Planning, passed the House on third reading. Ayes 60, excused 2. Message number 349, Mr. President, Senate File 130, Emergency Assistance Immunity Mental Health Services, passed the House on third reading. Ayes 60, excused 2. Message number 350, Mr. President, Senate File 143, Public Monies, Deposits in Credit Unions, passed the House on third reading. Ayes 46, noes 14, excused 2. Mr. President, Senate File 151, Monthly Ad Valorem Tax Distribution Amendments, passed the House on third reading. Ayes 60, excused 2. Signed, Katie Talbot, House Chief Clerk.
Thank you, Randy. Let's do concurrences. Senator Case, are you ready on concurrence on Senate File 75 engrossed? Okay, let's read it in.
Message number 346, concurrence requested, referencing Senate File 75, Coroner Investigations, Disposition of Decedent's Property.
Senator Case.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move the concurrence request, message number 346 to Senate File 75, Coroner Investigations, Disposition of Decedent's Property, and I would ask you to vote aye. Our friends down the hall decided, and you remember there's a notification of next of kin that we put in there. And recall, just back up one step, this is the bill that clarifies the roles of the coroner and the clerk of court when when a body's found. Usually it's a poor person that dies, but there's no obvious will and no next of kin that can be found. And so this is how they dispose of the property, Mr. President. The only thing this amendment does is say that the coroner shall make a good faith effort to contact the next of kin. And It's perfectly helpful to the bill. I hope you'll support it. Happy to answer any questions, but ask you to vote aye.
Thank you, Senator Case. Any questions on concurrence? Seeing none. The motion is that the Senate do concur on Senate File 75 and vote aye. Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Concurrence roll call vote, Senate File 75. Anderson? Aye. Barlow? Aye. Boner? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Crago? Aye. Crum excused. Dockstetter? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. French? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. Aye. Jones? Aye. Kolb? Aye. Landon? Aye. Larson? Aye. McEwen? Nethercott? Aye. Olson? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Pearson? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Smith? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. McEwen?
He's excused. I don't see him.
Excused. President Beitman?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Senate File 75 concurrence, 29 aye, 2 excused.
By your vote, you have concurred on Senate File 75. Let's see, Senate File 114 engrossed. We have a concurrence message here, message number 348. Senator Landon, are you ready on message number 348?
I am, Mr. President.
We'll have it read in then.
Message number 348, concurrence requested, referencing Senate File 114, missing persons reporting requirement.
Senator Landon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move message 348, concurrence requested, referencing Senate File 114, missing persons reporting requirement. Fellow senators, you'll remember this is a bill that puts into place the protocols for the state of Wyoming with regard to law enforcement and missing persons. I think it's some of the important work of the session, really. It brings Wyoming up to speed with many of the other states and puts a better system in place with how we'll deal with those folks who are reported missing. What they did down the hall, Mr. President, actually some really good work. One of the members down on that side is actually a former police chief, and he happens to be the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. What he did was to bring in some language related to social media and gives a much more immediacy to what we're up to on missing persons. I won't read that amendment. It's probably in front of you, but actually some really good work supported by the leadership on the other side. One of the leaders of the other chamber actually had a situation that was close to heart, and so they did good work on the other side. I would ask for you to, for your aye vote. I think they did some good work for us.
Thank you. Questions on the concurrence? Okay. The motion is that the Senate do concur on Senate File 114 and vote aye. The Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Concurrence vote, Senate File 114. Anderson? Aye. Aye. Barlow? Aye. Boner? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Aye. Case? Aye. Aye. Cooper? Aye. Aye. Crago? Aye. Crum excused. Dockstetter?
Aye.
Aye. Driscoll? Aye. French? Aye. Aye. Guru? Aye. Aye. Hicks? Aye. Aye. Hutchings? Aye. 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 Jones? Aye. Cole? Aye. Landon?
Aye.
Aye. Larson? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Olson? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Pearson? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Smith? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. President Beitman?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Concurrence vote on Senate File 114, 30 aye, 1 excused.
By your vote, you have concurred on Senate File 114. All right. Are there any announcements on joint committees? Anybody meeting that wants to get their meetings noticed? Okay. And we'll move on. Reports from standing committees. Oh, wait, Senator McEwen's up. Let's see what he has to say. Senator McEwen.
Yes, Mr. President, we will meet on House Bill 11 tonight upon adjournment. Manufacturing sales and use tax exemption amendments.
Okay. Upon adjournment, do we have a room? 110.
110.
110 upon adjournment. Thank you. All right. Moving right along. What do we have here? More enrolled acts. Boy, they just keep on coming here. Yeah, they're passing too many bills here. Signing of enrolled acts. House Enrolled Act number 26.
House Enrolled Act number 26 being original House Bill 42, an act relating to public health and safety.
About to sign House Enrolled Act number 26 being original House Bill 42. I'm so signed. House Enrolled Act number 27.
House Enrolled Act number 27 being original House Bill 181, an act relating to insurance.
About to sign House Enrolled Act number 27 being original House Bill 181. I have so signed. House Enrolled Act number 28.
House Enrolled Act number 28 being original House Bill 46, an act relating to education.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 28 being original House Bill 46. I'm so signed. Oops. Is this one? Yes. House Enrolled Act number 29.
House Enrolled Act number 29 being original House Bill 39, an act relating to property tax.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 29 being original House Bill 39. I'm so signed. All right, reports from standing committees.
Mr. President, the following reports are dated February 24, 2025. The Committee Number 4, Education, to whom was referred House Bill 148, University of Wyoming Governance Elected Trustees, respectfully reports back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do not pass. Ayes, Senators Roth, Schuler, and Scott. No, Senators Brennan and Olson. Senator Schuler, Chairman. Committee Number 4, Education, to whom was referred House Bill 20, K through 12, School Finance Facility Leasing. Respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Brennan, Rothfuss, Schuler, and Scott. Excused, Senator Olson. Senator Schuler, Chairman. Committee Number 4, Education, to whom is referred House Bill 36 engrossed, Hathaway Scholarship Amendments. Respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Brennan, Rothfuss, Schuler, and Scott. Excused, Senator Olson. Senator Schuler, Chairman. Committee Number 4, Education, to whom is referred House Bill 94, Charter School Authorizations Amendments. Respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Brennan, Olson, Schuler, and Scott. No, Senator Rothfuss. Senator Schuler, Chairman. Committee number 7, Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions, to whom is referred House Bill 79 engrossed, Bond Elections, a Voter Threshold Requirement. Respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Boner, Case, Dockstader, Landon, and Steinmetz. Senator Case, Chairman.
Thank you, Randy. All right, I think that finally clears the desk.
Anytime I got a.
Madam Majority Floor Leader, we're at that order of business, consideration of bills on general file.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate resolve itself into committee of the whole.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. Senator Olson, come on down. That is a rousing applause. Very rousing. Good, good. All right. Oh, I can do that when I get back in the subject.
All right, all right. The Senate will please come to order. The committee of the whole will come to order. All right. The first bill for our consideration is House Bill 211. The reading clerk will please read the bill.
House Bill 211 engrossed, Hunting Wildlife from Vehicles, an act relating to game and fish sponsored by Representative Alamon, was referred to Committee number 6, which returned a committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Boner, Hicks, Jones, Landon, and Schuler. Senator Landon, Chairman.
All right, you've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Landon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with a due pass recommendation on House Bill 211, hunting wildlife from vehicles. And for an explanation of the bill, I'd ask that you call on the senator from Garden Creek.
All right, Senator Ide.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a good little bill here. It's about as short as they come. I think most everybody in here should like this. All this bill, it allows hunting of predatory animals not deemed threatened or endangered by wildlife regulations from an aircraft or a vehicle. In short, you can shoot animals that don't require a license to hunt from an aircraft or vehicle. I think it's something that doesn't get enforced a lot, but it's not on the statutes, it cleaned up this statute here. I can just read it to you. Really, the changes at the bottom, line 14, no person shall harass, pursue, hunt, shoot, or kill any wildlife that requires a license or permit to take, or is classified or threatened or endangered by federal wildlife regulations. So essentially, you hear stuff out there, if you have to have a license to hunt, you can't do that. But a lot of predatory animals, this allows you to shoot from your vehicle or an aircraft. So that's all the bill does. It's a pretty short little amendment here, and I think it protects a lot of people and law enforcement officers that kind of question whether you can or not. So with that, I'll rest my case here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion on this House bill? Yes. Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, and the question I have is this permission to hunt predatory animals. Suppose you're hunting from the air, the landowner has denied you permission, or you've not sought permission from the landowner. Can you shoot them on private property? Because we've had troubles with that, where we regard certain of the predatory animals as beneficial and don't allow hunting and don't allow people to come on and take them unless they're after a specific problem animal. But that's been our policy for years. Does this affect the ability to keep people from they aren't physically coming on the land, they're in the air and they're shooting them, and that has caused a problem for us, Mr. Chairman, including one time a personal injury.
Other discussion, Senator Hicks.
Mr. Chairman, the answer to the question is no. It doesn't change anything that isn't in law already associated with the taking of predatory animals. So this bill is basically the status quo under that provision. So if you've got trespass, you're still going to have trespass, but this does not change any of that whatsoever. The major effect of the bill is that for my colleague from Bates Creek, that probably at some point in his time in life, you have these little four-legged little rodents running around out there, and he just slipped his old carbine out the side of the window and popped one out there that was digging up his alfalfa field. Right now, under the existing law, that's a fine of up to 1 year in prison and a $10,000 fine. The net impact of this bill is pretty minor, other than if you're inclined to or have in the past neighborly shot a rodent out of a vehicle, you were actually in violation of statutes. This is just a good little cleanup bill that otherwise keeps what is a normal ongoing practice in Wyoming legal. And I think it was a good catch by the representative there in Natrona County that maybe a lot of us in our lifetime haven't necessarily followed the law. It wasn't that it was intentional. This just cleans it up and says if it doesn't require a license or isn't federally or state protected, you can shoot those little rodents that are causing damage to your crops and your hay fields.
Other discussion on this bill, Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just curious about whether or not this would authorize you to shoot the otters.
All right, that's going to spark some conversation, Senator Boner.
Mr. Chairman, not yet. I don't think the governor's quite got around to making a decision on that bill, but we'll have to see what happens.
All right. Senator Hicks.
Mr. Chairman, if you see that it says the answer is no, you cannot, because it says right under there, they're classified as fur bearers, and you have to have a license to be able to trap or shoot a fur bearer. And this says anything that requires a license, you can't do that. So absolutely no shooting the otters under this bill.
Yes, Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I don't think that otter is being classified in that bill as a fur bearer. It's just being removed from the protected list. That would take a different legislative action to actually protect it under this particular law. But to that point, Mr. Chairman, if we're talking about predatory animals, I think it should be clear through the body what that includes in current statute. In current statute, coyote, jackrabbit, porcupine, raccoon, red fox, skunk, stray cat, and then at some point when gray wolves are dealt with at the federal level, gray wolves. But, and then what are protected, and that's if you look at the bill, that's Romanet 9 and 10 will be what are also anything that's licensed, you need a license for, and protected are the black-footed ferret, the fisher, the lynx, not the otter, pika, wolverine, and then the 10, Romanet X, is protected birds, and of course those are migratory birds under federal law. So there is no protection for the mighty otter in this bill. Thank you.
All right, any otter discussion? No? Okay, sensing you're ready to vote. All those in favor of Senator Landon's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report that it do so with the recommendation that House Bill 211 do pass, signify by saying aye. Any opposed, no. House Bill 211 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 275. The reading clerk will please read the bill.
House Bill 275 engrossed Treatment of Animals, an act relating to crimes and offenses, sponsored by Representative Byron. was referred to committee number 6, which returned a committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes Senators Boner, Jones, Landon, and Schuler. No, Senator Hicks. Senator Landon, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Landon?
Mr. President, or Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. Thank you. I would move that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with a due pass recommendation on House Bill 275. And Mr. Chairman, we'll keep it right here, and I'd like to visit with you about House Bill 275. You know, fellow senators, even if you are not a sportsman or a sportswoman, I think that you probably feel pretty strongly about all the wildlife in our state. This is an opportunity today to talk about a bill that I think really matters. It speaks to really who we are. A couple of years ago, we had an incident that really brought this to the radar screen in a bad way, held our state in a very bad light. And so this is in part related to the reaction from that incident over in Sublette County. But it's not only because of that. One of the reasons that I was very excited about the bill and wanted to be the Senate sponsor was because it just darn well makes sense to pass this bill and make a statement of who we are in Wyoming. We have a deficiency in our statutes. There is an absence of addressing wildlife torture. And in my view, we need it badly and are doing that today. We are considering that deficiency in this bill. And what this bill seeks to do is to stop those who would intentionally and purposefully torture Wyoming's wildlife. It would help us to draw a pretty clear line in those statutes that wildlife torture is wrong and that we're not going to tolerate it. So, Mr. Chairman, just to walk you into the bill, I won't spend a long time touching on every section of the bill, but I do want to take you to the bottom of page 2. There is a carve out there. It is underneath the definitions. The definition of wildlife will not include amphibians, crustaceans, fish, mollusks, and reptiles. The reason for that, Mr. Chairman, is that we didn't want any confusion over the situation where you might have caught a really big fish and you want to take a picture of him. We don't want fishing to get misconstrued in any way, and so we carved that out. This is a misdemeanor offense, Mr. Chairman. If you commit such an act a second time, it would elevate to a felony. But at the top of page 3, there's the language under penalties, misdemeanor offenses. This bill allows for the enforcement by our sheriffs and by our game wardens, and that is why we reference both 631.005 and 23.3.103. This essentially, this bill has the mirrored language from the statutes that relate to how we treat our domestic animals. It's really no different. Let's continue on through the bill, and I'll finish up so that we can visit about this or answer any questions. If you go over on page 4, we carve out for trapping. Trapping, of course, is important in the state of Wyoming. We want to make sure that that's not misconstrued. It changes nothing in our statutes. If you go down to paragraph B, you'll see that we cover that. There are already guidelines in place with regard to how often you have to check traps, et cetera. If you move over on page 5, that is a conviction for the first or subsequent violation, et cetera. And it indicates that the court may revoke any license issued under Title 23 of the Wyoming statutes. folks, that would involve multiple states potentially, depending upon whether or not the judge would deem it necessary to revoke your licenses. We have an interstate compact that relates to almost every state. I think 48 states out there. So if you think a misdemeanor is not enough of a punishment for what we're talking about in this bill, remember that that somebody who violates this statute could potentially lose their license privileges. So we're coming to the end. At the top of page 6, you will see statutory language for the taking of predatory animals. Notice that the new language provided that any predatory animal or predaceous bird reduced to possession shall be promptly killed or released, subject to section D in this section, which is the paragraph right below. And what is possession? Well, possession is dominion and control, which is consistent with the other Wyoming statutes. There's a carve out for the trappers again on page 7. We define incapacitate at the bottom of page 7. And we amended at the bottom of page 8. You'll notice that the language in Romanet 3, that this is a 3-year for the conviction of a low misdemeanors. You would lose your license privileges for 3 years and not the normal 6 years in some of the other sections of our statutes. You move over just some conforming language on page 9 and the effective date, July 1st of 2025. So I went as quickly as I thought I could, Mr. Chairman. I hope that was a good enough explanation of the bill. If not, I would be happy to try to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right, any discussion on House Bill 275? Senator Hicks.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I was a no vote in committee, and I want to explain that vote because I'm going to be a no vote on the bill. And I think the good chairman described my concerns as we had an incident of an event. We had an incident, one incident of an event. And now we've gone in and we've created a whole body of law. And that concerns me that we've got a knee-jerk reaction associated with one bad actor that did something that none of us agree with. And so now we're bringing this in here. But when I look at this bill, even under the misdemeanor penalty, and it's extremely punitive from a standpoint. So under the misdemeanor, 1 year in prison, $10,000 fine. You're going to lose all your hunting and fishing privileges for 3 years. Probably all those may be appropriate, but here's the one that really starts to bother me and where I think there's potential mischief in the bill is when you go up there and you deal with the provision that deals with taking out of an aircraft. And it is pretty routine taking of predators out of aircraft within the state of Wyoming for predator control on farms and ranches. But it's not unusual sometimes that when you're in a helicopter or an airplane fixed wing and you're trying to take these predators, you don't always get a clean kill. And they get away from you. And they're gone. And if somebody witnesses that on the ground, the way it says is you have to basically do everything possible within reasonable to go out there and make a humane kill. I don't know what that is in an airplane or a helicopter. I can see potential mischief associated with that. But let's assume this is a private contractor. Under this bill, they can confiscate your plane, your pickup, and everything that you use in injuring that animal, whether it's a predator or not. But let's just use the example of a predator control. You're out there flying in a fixed wing, you don't get a good shot, the animal gets away from you, somebody's on the ground, they witness it and film it, and how do you determine that they made every effort to come back and dispatch that animal? Nobody ever shows up. And all of a sudden, you get an overzealous prosecutor in some place that wants to make an example out of the law. They've just confiscated a $250,000 plane. He got up to a year in jail. I agree with the intent of the bill. I think the penalty phase on this is so egregious to the point that for an inadvertent circumstances and just one overzealous prosecutor, it could have tremendous negative consequences to people that are out there just trying to do routine predator control within the state of Wyoming. It's just a little too far reaching for me, Mr. President. That's why I was a no in committee, and while I'll continue to be a no on this bill.
Senator Hutchings.
Thank you,
And then
Mr.
Senator
Chairman.
Nethercott.
This sounds like deja vu from last Friday. On and for the bill. If you look at page 7 on line 17, it just says you make a reasonable effort. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the bill requires knowingly and with the intent to cause undue suffering and torture. I appreciate this overzealous prosecutor that wants to get reelected in his county in rural Wyoming for his salary. I strongly suspect that the electors and the constituents in that county will manage their county attorney's discretion accordingly. I strongly suspect. But if there is evidence that supports that an individual who knowingly and with intent tortures an animal, that they may be subject to a misdemeanor. That's good policy for wildlife management. It's very good policy. This is not going too far. We in Wyoming know how to manage our own. This is a homegrown Wyoming issue and a homegrown Wyoming bill. I went to kindergarten with him. My people. We're going to manage it accordingly. We'll prosecute accordingly. If you torture our wildlife, which belong to the state and belong to the people, there may be a misdemeanor consequence, just like if you speed beyond the speed limit. I think this is consistent with our laws. I think this is good legislation. I think it's right for the people of Wyoming. On and for the bill.
Senator Ide.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with both sides with my friends here on this, but, you know, and I agree, torturing wildlife is immoral. I mean, you can't get around that, but, you know, criminalizing that practice, you know, empowers the government to flex and abuse their newfound authority against maybe an otherwise law-abiding citizen. So I think it's a good senator from Baggs said, you know, we got one instance that gave us a black eye here, but it's not our culture to do that kind of thing. And I think we're going too far here by trying to criminalize this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Kolb.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I do agree with the intent of this bill. I mean, we're not about cruelty and torture to animals. However, I think there's a big difference between an aircraft who's not on the ground as opposed to a snowmobile who's driving across the ground and running over something and then don't quickly kill said predator. I think when you're in an aircraft, that's a whole nother issue. I mean, you're flying around, probably fairly decent shot to take anyway, you know, to hit something and then it get away from you, and how do you make a follow-up shot? I mean, easily it could be misconstrued as, you know, we shouldn't be taking any predators from the air. I think the aircraft are unique in this. You're not in the ground, you're in the air, and I think that's a whole different circumstance. I will try to run an amendment to strip the aircraft out of this, just because of the fact of it's an airplane. And it's not on the ground close to the said animal that you're dealing with as a predator. So I will support the bill through committee of the whole, but I will try to, like I said, make an amendment to, I think, improve the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Landon, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the good debate. And I respect those who think this bill goes too far. Maybe the expectation is too high for some. I don't think so. The way I was raised and the ethics and the morals that I was taught, I think this kind of thing is abhorrent, and it is not based on one singular occurrence. Folks, this is a bill that is supported by the folks who are working hard to save our mule deer population. It is supported by a federation that cares about our wildlife. Our outfitters and our guides testified, and they are on this bill and proud of it. The people who hold those antelope hunts once a year, they have endorsed this bill. And by the way, those county and prosecuting attorneys have weighed in and are very comfortable with where this bill stands. And of course, our chiefs and sheriffs. Folks, this is a bill that I think is an important statement of what we expect out of ourselves and what we expect out of our visitors and of our young people as they go out and either visit with or help us to manage our wildlife populations. This is one of our most precious resources. I think we need to treat it that way. I think the expectations do need to be pretty stringent. And you know what? We can do it. On the one hand, we've got people who think this is maybe a little bit too strict. There's a whole bunch of people out there that think this bill doesn't go far enough. That's okay. It's in a good spot. I think it's a good piece of legislation, and I hope you'll support it. Thank you.
Senator Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I just have a question on this, and I had a question when someone asked me about it. So I know that the previous statutes address the taking of equipment, but why was that? Like, I can see a misdemeanor and the fines and whatever, but I don't necessarily agree with taking people's possessions over these things. So maybe one of you can answer that for me since I wasn't here, but thank you.
Any further discussion? Senator Garreau.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'd probably leave the question to those that worked on this bill, but I can just say, as someone who worked over the summer in TRW on the committee on this subject, we got a lot of testimony, and I just wanted to back up the good senator from Natrona County and say that while there are a lot of people who think this goes too far, there are a number who really do think it doesn't go far enough. But in all the testimony we heard and did hear that this is more than an isolated incident, I also think this bill does strike the right note. And I know personally I'll get a lot of calls about that, and that's okay. But we kind of have to take this one step at a time, and as the good senator from Bagg said, we don't want to let this define, one incident define this, and it doesn't. And that's why I think we have hit the right spot. If we get a helicopter amendment or a plane fixed wing amendment, maybe that'll help it along a little bit for some. I thought the reasonable language that the good senator from here in Cheyenne mentioned that would take care of that. But on and for the bill.
Other discussion? Any other discussion? Senator Coble.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just could we get some data on fixed wing aircraft or rotor that there was an issue with an animal suffering or a report on something that went wrong? I look forward to hearing what that data might be. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, anything else? No, sensing you're ready to vote. All those in favor of Senator Landon's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that House Bill 275 do pass, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, no? No. House Bill 275 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 117. The reading clerk will please read the bill.
House Bill 117 engrossed, Omnibus Water Bill Construction, an act relating to water development project, sponsored by the Water Committee. One moment, please. was referred to committee number 5, which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes Senators Crago, French, Ide, McEwen, and Pearson. Senator French, chairman, was re-referred to committee number 2, which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes Senators Guru, Larson, Salazar, and Smith. Excused Senator Driscoll. Senator Salazar, chairman.
For the reading of the bill, what is your pleasure, Senator French?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that House Bill 117 do pass. And for an explanation, I'll call on the chairman of Select Water, Senator Steinmetz.
And before we do that, there is a standing committee amendment. Can we have that read in?
House Bill 117, Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to engrossed copy, page 11, lines 14 through 23, delete.
All right. And Senator French, did you want to move that standing committee amendment?
Sure. I'm trying to get back to it. I would move that standing committee. Give me a minute.
Standing committee amendment number 1 to House Bill 117.
Correct.
All right, it has been moved. And Senator Steinmetz?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Here is your good little omnibus water bill construction this year, and there should be a handout in your tray on your desk that shows you all the projects for the year. And if you have further questions, anybody on the Agriculture Committee or the Select Water Committee has a giant notebook. If you have questions about any of the projects specifically, we'd be glad to visit with you about them. You can look through and you can see all of the projects and all of the counties. So you see the projects in the third line in, the location of them, which account they're coming out of, Water 1, Water 2, Water 3, and the terms of the agreement, the descriptions of the projects, and other interesting notes. I will tell you this year on the House side, they decided to remove all of the cloud seeding projects, so those are no longer in there, which would be 4 and 5 at the top of your page. And so those are not included in the bill as it comes to us this year. Also of note, there are some additional funds that we have inserted into the bill this year. If you go down into the bill page, it would be lines 56 and 57. I'll use those to identify them for you. The Goshen Irrigation District tunnels, tunnels 1 and 2 rehabilitation. We are appropriating $20 million from the LSRA. And then for the LaPrelle Dam rehabilitation project, which is going to be a complete rebuild now since the dam has been condemned, Mr. Chairman, and is well underway in demolition. It should be completely removed by April 1st. Unfortunately, that dam has failed. So there is appropriated $10 million from the LSRA and $50 million as a reversion, a transfer back from the Alkali Creek Reservoir project. And Mr. Chairman, the reason your Select Water Committee chose to utilize funds in that manner is because that project has been on the books for several years. And unfortunately, they have not been able to secure all of the easements. So we're not even into design on that. The easements are still languishing out there. I believe they have about 90% of that project secured for easements. However, the remaining landowners are the most affected landowners. So in the essence of trying to maintain that we want to get the most return from our funds, we decided to sweep those back that are using about 1.2% interest in Water 3. That's about what they're gaining. And use that because LaPrelle is an immediate project. They hope to be working on that immediately, Mr. Chairman. And so we swept those funds back to work on the investment earnings and also try to help them move that project along a little bit. We did leave them $5 million there to secure those easements, and when they get that done, they can come back and we can look at reappropriating that money for the project then. So we did, in the House, they did give them a time extension to 2029. We had taken that back to 2026 to have them get that done as soon as they could. I think that kind of gives you the gist, and I would take any questions on the bill, and then I would go through the amendment, however you'd prefer me to do that, from the Ag Committee.
Okay. Let's go ahead and proceed with the amendment.
Okay, so the amendment, the Standing Committee Amendment number 1, because there's two, there's one from Appropriations and one from the Ag Committee.
Yep,
What-
just on Standing Committee Amendment number 1 for now.
Yep, so I'll go to that one first. This one simply takes out, in the House side, they added an additional $20 million for some well projects for LaPrel. This takes that out because, and that is found on page 11, 12, and 13 of your bill. The reason that has been taken back out is because the irrigation district came and testified and said they don't believe the groundwater source is appropriate for the wells. So they actually, the entity that would have benefited from the money rejected it because they don't think they can use it. So that was the gist of that amendment. Then on page 47, they changed the year back from 2029 to 2026 back to where the Select Water Committee had it. And then the next one is on pages 60 and 61. These were just provisions they removed that had to do with the dam, and since the dam has been demolished for the most part, then we took that part out as well because it no longer applied. So with that, I would stand for questions on the amendment or call the question on the amendment.
Any questions on the amendment? All right, all those in favor of Senator French's motion to adopt Standing Committee Amendment number 1 to House Bill 117, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, no? All right, that amendment has been adopted. We're back on the bill. We do have a second Standing Committee Amendment, if we could have that read in.
House Bill 117, Standing Committee Amendment number 2 to engross copy, page 1, line 8, delete.
And this is an appropriations amendment. Senator Driscoll, would you like to move it? Or Senator Larson? Okay. There you are.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, yes, I would move Standing Committee Amendment number 2, I think, to House Bill 117 and ask for your favorable consideration. Essentially, what this amendment does is brings that $50 million that was taken away from the Alkali Creek Reservoir and puts it back in their account so they can proceed. I think taking that $50 million out sends a very bad message to the people in that area that are fighting the reservoir construction. I just do want to let you know that the Norwood Irrigation District does, it has 93% of the easements secured, and they're working on this other 7%. But those 7% are doing all they can to, I think, kill the project. And I think if you were to go to that area, you'd probably hear 90% that want this, of all the people there. Just a little bit of background on the reservoir. It's been worked on since 2007 by the Norwood Irrigation District. In 2019, I might be wrong on the dates a little bit, we funded them with $59 million. They will serve about 10,000 to 15,000 acres when they get this project built. It'll be about a 9,000 acre foot reservoir. But that's what this amendment does. It reinstates that 50 million back there. You know, I'm all for the LaPrel, the 60 million going there. We need to fix that dam. And I'm also for the 20 million going to the tunnels in Goshen County. But there's a reason why we have an omnibus water bill. That's because everybody wants to pick and choose and throw these dollars around, and it's good to come as a group. Let's all support all the projects. So I'm hoping you'll vote for the amendment.
Discussion on the amendment, Senator Cole.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do appreciate my co-legislator's point of view, supporting his people. However, I've been sitting on select water and listening to this saga of it's a mess. I'll just say it that way. You've got no path forward. There's huge problems with the right-of-ways. Actually, huge problems that they approved and paid people for right-of-way agreements that you don't have a complete right-of-way conveyance. So it's a giant mess. It's gone nowhere. It's costing us multiples of what it was first projected to cost. I don't see a path forward with the Alkali Creek situation. It's just that, a mess. I think if we move that money into a place that's gonna do it, be able to utilize it, that's a positive thing. I think that what we're doing now is hoping for an outcome that will never happen up there. I can explain it to my co-senators at a later date if they so wish, but everybody on select water knows the situation, and that's why the position was taken that we transfer funds to LaPrel for that purpose, and that's why I'm against this amendment. I think if they have something in the future that would yield an outcome, a future, I think that's a next appropriation to talk about for Alkali Creek. But the way it stands now, on and against the amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we're on the amendment. Senator Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With all due respect to the senator that just spoke, it's a long ways from his county to my county. I know these folks. I know where we're at on the project. I've been involved with this project from the forming of the water district years ago. We've been in direct contact with part of the group. We have a meeting set up with the rest of the group. There is a path forward, and we're really close to closing on this. If it doesn't happen, then the money reverts. It's as simple as that. But to say that there is no path forward is absolutely wrong. Absolutely wrong. There is a path forward. I think we're within, the negotiations are extremely close right now. And we even have an alternative route we can go with the water to get it to the reservoir as a possibility. So, yeah, is there a path forward? Absolutely. When you give to one, you have to take from somebody else. And that's what's happening here. In this case, we can still support LaPrel, we can still support the tunnels, and we can still support Alkali Reservoir. Every drop of water that goes down that creek, it goes down the Millwood River, goes down the Bighorn River, is wonderful for Montana, for the states to the north and to the east and all the way to the Mississippi. It doesn't do Wyoming any good when it's running down the creek. This is a critical reservoir for our neighborhood. It helps, I believe it's just over 14,000 acres that'll fall underneath this. And there's about 40,000 acres in the entire watershed that will benefit from the entire project. So this is a good project. It is close. There are naysayers here. They don't know the folks involved. We live with them. We talk to them daily. Stick with us. We're about here.
Senator French.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I strongly urge the body to vote against this amendment. That project, the Alkali Creek project, is not ready for prime time. We're going to be down here in a year. We can discuss it again then. It gives them time to continue to work on getting their easements. We've got Goshen. Look, we've had to add $20 million to that. That's an important project. Look what inflation's doing to that project. And for us to think LaPrel's going to come in at, quote, $180 million, I would garner to say, let's think again on that one. I don't see any reason to tie up that $50 million. We can address this in a year's time, so I strongly urge you to vote no.
Other discussion on Standing Committee Amendment number 2? Senator Hicks.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think this is a journey, and just to give you a little background, is when I was chairman of Select Water, when this first came up a number of years ago, we went through the normal level 1, level 2 process. It did go back to 2006. We funded the $50 million with the idea that the thought that this had a lot of traction. This is a great project, absolutely a great project. But your Select Water Committee has been trying to navigate the nuances of a lot of the issues up there that's created the delay in this project. And it gets back to easements. It's really a conversation about property rights. And I would agree with my colleague in his district. The parties are getting closer, but we wouldn't be here today if, in fact, many members of your Select Water Committee took their own time and went up there and met with those people that were concerned with the project. And almost repeatedly, every one of those said, we're not opposed to the project, we support water development. The issue was the process that was used to try to get those easements, and they were done in a number of ways. There was property that was held by a bank. The state went in there and acquired an easement, then it was sold to one of the neighbors. There's been a lot of issues, and so your Select Water Committee, recognizing all those issues, actually made a recommendation to the parties a year ago. And the recommendation was you people that have a fundamental disagreement about the easements and what's right, what's compensatory mitigation, what's just straight mitigation, what's that look like? So we strongly recommended that they use the ag mediation service, and the parties did that, and they collectively went. We had the mediation service come in. We were really, really close to striking a deal to get these easements. If they do not have them, you can't move this project forward. And we were very close. And then just one of the individuals decided to go out and just demonstrate as the major shareholder and the operator of the canal that he could pretty much force the issue, and went through and went way outside, in my opinion, of a prescriptive easement and violated almost every term and conditions that they had conceptually agreed on to do the easements, and that upset the apple cart. So there is 90, whatever the 90% are correct, 10% can't move forward, folks. They can't unless, and this is one thing that your Select Water Committee was pretty explicit on, that if you use your right of eminent domain to condemn that private property against those people will and move this project forward, you're probably not going to have the support of the state of Wyoming to do that. We've never had to do that on a reservoir, and the history of the state of Wyoming is condemn somebody's private property. So that was out there. We said, let's pull that back. We're not going to support the right of eminent domain. Even the district said, we're not interested in doing that. That probably was something that was said that was a byproduct of a conversation. Why we're here today is because there is still a critical easement that has to take place. And until that takes place, and that's the largest section of that canal that has to be enlarged to carry this water right. I think they're getting closer all the time. I know a colleague from the Bighorn Basin, the representatives, they're working tremendously hard on getting those agreements in place. This is a great project, but under our normal process, we left money in there so this could move forward. They can acquire the easements. So when A lot of it was waiting on the final disposition of what happens here. We pass this out of here. There's money there to go ahead and acquire the easement, get the engineers under contract, start moving to 30% design. We'll be back down here. Certainly it's going to be, from my position, advocating for this project. I've advocated it since day one. It is a great project, but that $50 million couldn't get spent this year, even if they come to an agreement on April 1st when we get out of there, because that's construction money. We don't even have final designs for construction yet. We've got to get the easements in place, get the engineers are under contract, they can start into final designs. We have more than ample time to come back here next year, and I'm going to be standing on this floor and saying we need to appropriate $50 million and probably plus the inflationary costs. I'm going to fight for this project. I believe in this project. It's a good project, but we don't have to fund this at this point in time. In fact, I would tell you, in my opinion, and it's strictly my opinion, if we put the money in there now, it actually upsets the negotiations of getting the easement. And that's just my opinion. I know my colleague may disagree with me on that, but let's get these groups to the table. Let's get the easements in place. We can come back. There's enough money in there to finish the easements and start onto the designs. And we'll be back here next year, and I'm going to fight for this project.
Senator Cooper and then Senator Greer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The speaker's exactly right. The money's in place. The project is 90% permitted. Easements are 90% in place. The step forward is available now. The money will not be spent before now and a year from now, but neither will it be spent on La Perelle. The money's in place where it is right now. Let's leave it in place. We can fund La Perelle at the same time here with the same amendment, and we can move forward with both projects. Why pick one over the other? We're in a good position for both of these projects to move forward today. The senator that brought the amendment forward and I have committed to sitting down with these people, all in the same room, and we're gonna hash this thing out as soon as we get home. That's where we're headed. A year from now, we'll be going down a road of construction. The money's in place. We need it left in place so that we can move forward. Thank you.
Senator Giroux.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. You know, I agree with a lot that's been said here. These water projects are so critical to our state, and they're so hard to develop and to get to the finish line on. I do agree with a lot of the statements. Frankly, if I were king of this forest on this one, we wouldn't do water projects until we had all the easements set. We wouldn't even start a project until design was completely finished and every decision had been made. On a lot of these projects, frankly, most of these projects, that's not true right now. But here's what I see with this move. If we take the money away, I see it exactly the opposite as my friend from Bags. I think that'll empower the people who haven't given up these easements yet. And they'll say, we're winning, hang on. And then that project that I do agree with my friend from Bags is a great project and should be done, could really be in jeopardy. So what we're asking, and this is your appropriations committee saw in this, and I too am on Select Water, and I did too go to that town and I listened to those folks, sat with them. But I feel now, after talking to the representatives who were in the field on this one, that taking this money away is far more detrimental at this point. So to leave the money in, I'm on for this amendment. I want to leave this money there. I want to get these easements locked up. I also agree we should not use eminent domain. We should not condemn one piece of property. And I don't believe that's going to be necessary or even something that we even need to discuss. That we can work this out with these folks and get this project moving on and forth. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we are on Standing Committee Amendment number 2. Senator Driscoll and then Senator Bonner.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'd like to echo the last remarks. I spent about a decade on water. I'm going to tell you, I look around the room and I look at water committee members. Other than dams that are in place and ones that we bought, I can't name you a single one that hasn't had easement and ditch problems. Virtually all our other projects do as well. We have funded them. If you want to look through the bill, I'm holding it in my hand. Design and procurement is stated about 40 times in there. We have been funding projects for years in exact this fashion. We put the money up and then we let them go get it. I strongly disagree with that in principle. You're going to hear me stand up. I'm on the amendment. So at some point, I'm going to talk about the bill itself if we end up getting into it. But I think we've got the cart ahead of the horse a lot of times in the past. And now all of a sudden, in one instance, we're deciding to do it differently than we've been doing it. And this is differently, folks. I can tell you about at least 4 or 5 other dam projects in Wyoming. Some in this good senator's district, some in that good senator's district, some in others. Some of them still don't have all their easements in place. We got money tagged to those projects still. This is not the right approach to go about it. I think, we've got an interesting deal. We've all got information. I just heard about eminent domain and condemning properties. That's not the legislator's role, folks. That's the local irrigation district. It's up to them to decide if they want to cause absolute warfare. Unless we want to put down they can't do it. I think our job is to fund good water projects that keep water in Wyoming. And funding this right now sends the right message. The money will still be there. Just the flip side of what you just heard. We can fund it next year. We also can turn the money back next year if it doesn't make it. I encourage us to leave this amendment the way it is. It's kind of interesting. We've always kind of hung in there on this one. If we want to proverbially pull the Band-Aid off this amendment, game on.
Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On for the amendment, to be clear, I think we need to support all of these water projects and just point out that perhaps, we're talking about the money and that's appropriate, but another part of this amendment is changing the deadline, which the standing committee moved up to 2026. This puts it back to 2029. So in terms of resolving this issue with alkali, perhaps that's just as important a consideration. Maybe that'd be a subject of a second reading amendment, depending on how this discussion goes. But I just want to make sure, it was stated at some point that La Perelle isn't moving forward. I want to make sure we're very clear that, that we've already spent millions of dollars on design. The dam is coming down as we speak. The work is literally happening right now. So I want to make sure that the body understands that we don't get confused. That work is happening right now, and I appreciate the way this bill is structured as it stands. So, but just make sure that we don't compare apples to oranges there, Mr. Chairman. But for the amendment, for the discussion, but there's no shortage of need for these funds. Fact is, we have a lot of aging critical infrastructure out there, and I suspect that the discussions we've had with La Perelle, with Goshen, are just the beginning. So it's now's not the time to move funds away from water development.
Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good discussion, everyone, and a well-deserving project. I have to disagree with my good friend from Devil's Towers. It's been a long time, a little while since he's been on Select Water, and we have cleaned up the process quite a bit. We are requiring a lot more upfront work be done before we start appropriating these funds. As you know, funds have gotten scarce with the Board of Control on this water fund now, and all of the projects that are coming through. We have a lot of failing and aging irrigation infrastructure. To the good gentleman who represents that area, what's the reason why to do this? If you take out your goldenrod and look on page 3, you'll see that the Omnibus water bill construction appropriates $50 million at the point that this bill was in when the House sent it over. We subtracted $20 million from that because we took out the wells in the amendment from the Good Ag Committee, but then it adds back another 50 million. So we'll end up with a $80 million price tag there on your LSRA. So everybody just needs to know that's the policy consideration in an account that earns more interest than the water development accounts. So that is we're trying to be very judicious with how we handle this, and so that's part of the reason. So we're at 1.15 billion in that account, and then it would take it down even more.
Senator Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. what we've got going on up there is a spit match between two neighbors. How many years have neighbors been fighting over water in the state of Wyoming? Since 1890. This thing is solvable. It's solvable now. We've made the commitment to get it done. We will get it done. If the date is an issue, I'll give you the date back. We'll put it back to 26. I'm fine with that. Because if we can't fix this now, the good senator and myself, we are committing to you, to each and every one of you in this room, that we will go and either we'll fix this, or a year from now, we'll be right here saying, take that money back. That's exactly where we are. That money will go back to Water 3, where it can be further used. But give us the opportunity, one-on-one with the people involved, to fix the problem. We'll make it better.
Still on the standing committee amendment, Representative Larson.
Mr. Chairman, sorry to get up again. Request you vote aye on this amendment. This is very, very important for that area. Sends a terrible signal if you don't put that 50 million back in there. We've all discussed it already. It sends the worst signal out there. These people, there's 10% of them, 7% of them out there of the land that, you know, they'll go, yep, got that one. We're gonna kill it, baby. So vote aye on the amendment. Let's give them the encouragement that we support water in Wyoming. We support the projects for reservoirs, tunnel fixing. We support it. Vote aye.
All right, we are voting on the amendment now. All those in favor of Senator Larson's motion to adopt Standing Committee Amendment number 2 to House Bill 117 signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. Okay, that amendment has been adopted. We're division being called. All those in favor of Standing Committee Amendment number 2, please stretch your legs. Okay, 19 aye. Go ahead and have a seat. All those opposed, less than a majority. All right. That amendment has been adopted. We are back on the bill. Any discussion on the bill? Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, did I hear there was $20 million in here for Goshen County tunnels? I have a couple questions on that. Is that a grant or a loan? And is it a matching with federal funds? Thank you.
Any other questions on the bill? Anyone want to address that question? Senator Barlow?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just following up on that, because we have heard there's been money taken out, money put in, I think for second reading, it would be helpful for some of us who are not on select water or not listening to these bills to know where we are and where the source of all the funds are as it stands on committee of the whole, if it should pass. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Jones?
Mr. Chairman, I just had a question on the 2 cloud seeding projects that were taken out. I had a question. It looks like we had a group together with the Colorado River Basin and we all contributed a certain amount. So what happens to that if we don't contribute any to that? Especially since we've talked about previous bills about curtailment on the horizon.
Senator Landon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just with regard to the fiscal note on this bill, it would be helpful to me to know more definitively and exactly where we stand on the Repeal project. We've all heard a lot about it, but for those of us who are not on select water, I can't remember an expenditure like this on the Omnibus bill. It's a big one, and I just think it deserves our consideration. And just so that when I go home and I talk about a $90 million project or whatever it is, I could really use just a little bit more detail on where we are, what we did on the other end, maybe a little visit that we could have on that project. So thank you.
Senator Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, similar line of questioning, and it goes back to where we were at. That's why I said we were on the amendment. I wasn't going to talk. I think we're starting to cross a path here that's interesting. We've all held up a piece of paper, it's gold, and we've talked about it, what it means and what it is and what we're doing to it. And for the first time, folks, we're crossing the line out of the water accounts. The history has always been tough times. We went and raided the water accounts, and we probably owe them some back. We're doing just the opposite this time. We're going to dip into our other funds outside of the water accounts, and not insubstantially. 180 million on Repeal. Big dollars cross tunnel money. This money is not water money, folks. This is money out of the goldenrod, and I'm one of the ones who took a beating on this floor. Here's the goldenrod, here's where the money's all going. Why are you taking this money away from us? Folks, this is doing that, and it's doing it on projects that we don't have estimates on. I read one of our local papers, and I was reading with the board on Repeal. They're not sure it costs 180 million, because we haven't done any design yet. And I think that's one of the things that I ask in the question is, why in the world, we do this with schools all the time. We don't say, here's the price for a new school. What we say is, go engineer it, get a set of plans, and come back to us, and then we're gonna fund it. And I think we're getting the cart ahead of the horse on a whole bunch of these projects, i.e. Repeal, maybe on Alkali Creek we just did. Wheatland Tunnels, I've heard they might run as high as 200 million. That's the numbers I've heard. I don't know if it's accurate, but I've certainly have heard they're gonna cost more than the 20 million. And 2 years ago on this floor, I heard that if we would give them money for them, they would never be back for money again. That was a quote off this floor. We wanted to use ARPA dollars. They wanted general fund dollars. They said fund it with general fund, we won't come back to the trough. Guess where we're at today? We're back to the trough. And I'm gonna make you a wager. They're gonna be back again on it. And we're gonna be back on some other ones. And I think it's time for water. If they're not gonna stay within the water accounts, we make sure we're designed, engineered, have easements in place, have all the dots crossed, I's dotted and the T's crossed, before we go down the path of tying up piles of money. And so I think we're in a bit of a time to change policies a little and probably look a little harder on how we go about it. I think it makes sense. Thank you.
Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And want to reiterate, I agree with what we just heard. When I was on the Agriculture Committee, we went and asked the Water Development Commission to do a study on all the critical aging irrigation infrastructure throughout the state. Now we've done that assessment, and it's going to come time to reassess how we fund these projects, because there are a substantial amount of projects, or infrastructure, I should say, that is about 100 years old, and this stuff just doesn't last forever, Mr. Chairman. So we might have to look at changing up the way we do business, something I've always advocated for. Now, to my colleague from Trona County asking for specifics on La Perelle, I want to highlight the unique nature of that situation where the dam is currently breached. This is an emergency. We've been aware of it since 2019, and we're just getting to the point where we're at a 30% design right now. And so they're doing the work tearing down the dam earlier than the current dam, earlier than we thought. We're at 30% design. They'll be hiring a construction manager at risk relatively soon after we get out here this spring. That's going to further refine the cost estimate, Mr. Chairman. So same process we went through renovating this Capitol building, making sure that we have somebody that's pursuing the state of Wyoming's interest, making sure that the project isn't any more expensive than it needs to be. So just want to recognize the unique nature of this project, recognize the fact that there is $100 million worth of federal funds that we're bringing in specifically for this project. So it's basically, it's a little more than 50-50 federal estate match. So we're not footing the bill all alone. And this is a project that was built in 1909. It was renovated in the 1970s using private funds, Mr. Chairman. So the irrigation district has been very responsible making sure that it hasn't come back to the state of Wyoming for 110 plus years, asking for funds. I think that's actually a pretty good record. So we have lots of challenges in this area. I'd submit to you that this situation with La Perelle, though it is challenging, has been handled as responsibly as we can given the circumstances. And the infrastructure, the fact that it's lasted this long without really coming back and asking the state for funding is extraordinary. So I hope that answers some of the questions, I should say. We got a long path ahead of us, but it's absolutely vital that we press forward with this project because it is an emergency and there's lots of people's livelihoods that are at stake. And this water also for 110 years has supported our wildlife. It's important to remember that. It's not just for agriculture, it's for the state's wildlife as well. So hopefully that helps give a little bit more information. I'd love to get with any of you who have any more questions about this project, but that's what I'd like to highlight for now.
Senator Giroux.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I think that we'll work hard, those of us I know on water will try to get those answers to those questions as best we can. But the good senator's right, we don't know where that's going to end up with La Perelle or with the tunnels. We don't know for sure where that's going to end up. But I'll tell you this, we've made a compact with the farmers and ranchers and the people in those areas to complete those projects, and I know we're going to do that. And so, but we need to get real serious and real honest about what those projects are going to, what they're going to cost as best as we can, as best what we know right now, and we'll get you those numbers. But I also want to say, I think the Water Committee's done a lot in the area of trying to get projects more moving on a time schedule that works. There was a few years there where it seemed like we were just kicking the can down the road with these projects and adding an inflation number. That's been cleared up a lot, and it's to the good work of the committee that's gotten that done. So we're working, and I know that there are changes, like I said before in the amendment. I think there's some things that we should be doing differently, but we've come a long way, and we'll continue to do so. We'll get you that information and get this into a shape that you can feel good about it when you vote aye. Thank you.
Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I appreciate some of the background on La Perelle. I think there seems to be a lot of uncertainty at the federal level about flow of funds and everything. So I would like some follow-up from the proponents of La Perelle, particularly about federal funds, obviously state funds, that's what we're talking about within our budget, but those federal funds. And then I would like, I certainly appreciate that private funds, irrigation district funds have maintained apparently this project for 100 plus years. What's the projection? Will they be able to afford to maintain the new project going forward? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone, Senator Steinmetz?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll get you more information on all those projects. We have handouts and status for where they're at currently. There are some unknowns with some of them more than others because it's an emerging situation on the ground, but we will get you as much information as we possibly can for second reading.
Thank you. Senator Larson.
Mr. Chairman, also on that, I think there might be some discussion on cloud seeding. Maybe there'll be some other amendments or something to talk about those.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on this bill? Seeing none, all those in favor of Senator French's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report that it do so with the recommendation that House Bill 117 do pass, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. House Bill 117 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 103. The reading clerk will please read the bill.
House Bill 103, Columbarium Regulations, sponsored by Representative Sherwood, an act relating to cemeteries and burials, was referred to Committee Number 10, which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Barlow, Crum, Hutchings, Scott, and Steinmetz. Senator Barlow, Chairman.
You've Heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Barlow?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move and the committee of the whole rises to report it does so with the due pass recommendation of House Bill 103, Columbarium regulation, and I would turn this topic over to the good Senator Crago. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Crago.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I bring to you House Bill 103, Columbarium regulation. Ask for your favorable consideration. Mr. Chairman, good senators, this is a constituent bill. It's brought to us by a couple of our cemetery districts that have been having issues getting permits for their columbarium constructions. Right now, they're being denied by our good department of that regulates these, which is the Department of Health. Not because they're doing anything wrong, but because our statutes are outdated and we don't have current construction standards in our current statutes. They don't take into consideration modern building materials and the new techniques available. This statute hasn't been changed since it was adopted in 1957. And so all this bill is doing is bringing in modern construction standards. It still maintains the requirements for structural integrity and weathering. And it also updates the materials that are allowed for exterior walls, exterior doors, and interiors. It's pretty simple, straightforward. Happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, my mic wasn't on. Any discussion on this bill? Okay. All those in favor of Senator Barlow's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report that it do so with the recommendation that House Bill 103 do pass, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? House Bill 103 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 125. The reading clerk will please read the bill.
House Bill 125, Repeal Unauthorized Use of Vehicle Crime, an act relating to motor vehicles, sponsored by Representative Washington. Was referred to committee number 1, which turned to committee recommendation that it do pass. Aye, Senators Crago, Crum, Hicks, Kolb, and Olson. Senator Olson, chairman.
For the reading of the bill, what is your pleasure, Senator Crago?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that House Bill 125 do pass. And for the explanation of the bill, I would direct us over to good Senator Hicks.
Senator Hicks.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, so this wins the prize for the shortest, best little bill in the entire legislature this year. So vote aye. So basically what the bill does is there's a provision in statute that deals with unauthorized use of motor vehicles. This was adopted in 1923. And what this does is repeal this archaic provision. Right now, under this unauthorized use of a motor vehicle, it's a simple misdemeanor. Think about what vehicles looked like in 1923. This was probably the joyriding statute back then. Nowadays, if you steal the tires off a vehicle, you've committed a felony. But if you take the whole vehicle and run off with it, it's just a misdemeanor. And so it's an archaic provision in the statutes. Let's get this one out of the green books. Vote aye.
Oh, there is some discussion on this good little bill. Senator Brennan.
Mr. Chairman, I'm impressed. We've got a bill that's older than anybody in this body that we're trying to repeal. Not just you and I, Mr. Chairman, the whole body. Vote aye.
Any other discussion? Senator Scott, you don't want to weigh in on that one? All right. All those in favor of Senator Crago's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report that it do so with the recommendation that House Bill 125 do pass, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. House Bill 125 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for your consideration is House Bill 129. The reading clerk will please read the bill.
House Bill 129, School Finance Dates for Fund Transfers, an act relating to school finance, sponsored by Representative Larson. Was referred to committee number 4, which turned to committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes Senators Brennan, Olson, Rothfuss, and Schuler. Excuse Senator Scott. Senator Schuler, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Schuler?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that House Bill 129 do pass. And I will explain this bill, and I think this might take the record. I think it's going to be even shorter than the last one you heard. So what this bill does, if you take a look at page 1, it just removes an additional annual distribution of the county school fund. If you remember, a couple years ago, we changed the way we did ad valorem for our treasurers to kind of help out when we made that transition. So all we're doing is on the bottom of page 1, on the second Monday of each month, we're just deleting, and on June 20th of the last business day immediately preceding June 20th of each year, we're just deleting that little section right there. So it'll just read, on the second Monday of each month, the county treasurer shall apportion all monies in the county treasury belong to the county school fund. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions.
All right, going for the new record. Seeing no urge to discuss this bill, we'll go for the question.
Yay.
All those in favor of Senator Schuler's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report that it do so with the recommendation that House Bill 129 do pass, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. House Bill 129 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 188. The reading clerk will please read the bill.
House Bill 188, 2 families, 1 nanny, an act relating to child care facilities, sponsored by Representative Yin, was referred to committee number 10, which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes Senators Barlow, Crum, Hutchings, Scott, and Steinmetz. Senator Barlow, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Barlow?
Mr. Chairman, I move the Committee of the Whole rises to report it does so if they do pass a recommendation on House Bill 188, 2 families, 1 nanny. And I ask the good Senator Boner to present the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fellow senators, we have a bill here that will reduce regulation and help out with the child care crisis in the state. We all know how difficult it is to find folks who watch after our kids, and that's a difficult part of raising a family has become more challenging over the years. What this does is it reduces regulation and empowers our parents to work together to find somebody to help out with childcare without running into our DFS regulations when it comes to child care facilities. So the bill's fairly straightforward. It simply says when our statute's dealing with regulation of child care facilities, we're exempting out a situation where 2 families come together and then allow for child care in one of the family's homes for up to 4 children, no more than 2 of them being under the age of 2 years old. So that's all the bill does. Under this circumstance would require some licensing with DFS. This bill would simply exempt that. We have responsible limitations with up to 4 children and further limitation for children under 2. So that's what the bill does. I'll stand for questions.
Any discussion on this bill? All right, all those in favor of Senator Barlow's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report that it do so with a favorable recommendation of House Bill 188, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. House Bill 188 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is House Joint Resolution 4. The reading clerk will please read the bill.
House Joint Resolution 4 engrossed, constitutional amendment, veterans property tax exemption, sponsored by Representative Stivar. A joint resolution specifying an exemption from property tax for property of fully disabled veterans. Was referred to committee number 3, which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes Senators French, Ida McEwen. No, Senator Case and Pappas. Senator McEwen, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator McEwen?
I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that House Joint Resolution 4 do pass.
And you want to turn over the explanation of the bill to the good Senator Boner, I assume?
I do.
Okay. Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, it's House resolution after all, we'll figure it out. Senators, this is a constitutional amendment. It goes into Article 15, Section 12, dealing with property tax exemptions, and adds a extremely limited exemption for our veterans community, but not just any veteran, the veterans that have been 100% disabled. And so this is a very small part of the population. Whenever I talk to veterans groups, I always point out just how few people serve the military anymore. Currently, it's about 1% of the population. You go back to, say, World War II or Vietnam, that was 7% of the population. And so right now, this is about 20% of the veteran community is 100% disabled as determined by the VA. And this would only apply to their primary residence and up to 10 acres of associated land. There's provision that if a surviving spouse would benefit from this as well if the disabled veteran passes away and the surviving spouse is not remarried and does not move. So fairly limited exception. Really, it's the least that we can do for those who have given so much for our country. Once again, recognizing this isn't just veterans overall. This is folks who have served and have 100% disability connected to their service to this country. So hope you can support this constitutional amendment. If we can get enough support, we'll push it on to our constituents and see what they think.
Senator Hutchings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On and for the bill, but I must call conflict. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'm curious why we don't just do this. We could easily do this through creating a statutory exemption that gets funded. That would be the difference, right? You can't exempt and then have them not pay. They would have to pay, and then we would basically provide the credit for that from the general fund. That seems a lot easier than having it in the Constitution and amending the Constitution. This is very legislative in the Constitution where we seem empowered right now. So perhaps a little discussion on that. The idea is, it's a great idea. I have no objection to doing this. I just don't know why we would need a constitutional amendment. This seems straightforward legislation.
Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I was a no vote in committee just for that same reason. I really think this should be a legislative action, not a change, not be so prescriptive in the Constitution. I think that possibly other legislatures would then, want to remove it. I don't know. I think it's a good idea as well, but I think it's a statutory issue, not a constitutional amendment issue.
Senator Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd have to agree with both the former speakers here. If this was a bill, I'd be 100% in favor, but I just don't see that this rises to the level of a constitutional amendment. Our Constitution is a great document. It needs to be able to be changed on occasions, but this is not one of those occasions. This needs to be a statutory issue. Thank you.
Further discussion, Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So certainly conceptually, I agree. Actually, it's interesting to me that it takes 100%. Seems like we'd have a sliding scale. If you were 100% disabled, you get 100%, 90, 90, 80, 80. You could go down the line. That's much easier to accomplish in statutory form than it would be in constitutional. So, and we do have a veterans property tax exemption program already. So for the proponents, I'm like I said, I have no angst against it. It just seems very prescriptive. The other thing is I wonder about, you could move here last week and apply for this and be eligible for it. So we do things in Wyoming to benefit Wyoming veterans, Wyoming citizens, but this would be eligible, the way I read this, any disabled veteran, 100% disabled veteran, would be eligible if they own that primary residence in Wyoming at any time. We just went through a process where we had a long-term homeowner, and we only gave them 50% after they might have paid taxes here for 50 years, but hadn't reached 65 years of age or older. So while I appreciate military service, and I'm very grateful, I think this is probably could be accomplished in some other ways. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Boner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good questions. Well, I think, as why we're doing this through a constitutional amendment. I think this adds certainty that what we're doing here is going to be above bar. I'm not aware of any challenges to our current exemptions, but perhaps there could be an argument that that they are at risk from a constitutional perspective because we're supposed to apply our taxes evenly. And so I think that eliminates the doubt. This is the right way of doing it, making sure that that as we double down on property tax exemptions and reductions, that this is all above board and not at risk to a constitutional challenge. So I think that's the reason for why this is a constitutional amendment, whereas we've been doing it a different way up until this point. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to survive a court challenge. So this is make sure that this is done correctly. And if we want to amend it or even allow for the possibility of having statute later on to further define the or have some sliding scale or something like that, that could be an easy second reading amendment. So that's the reason for the constitutional amendment, not a bill as we're used to. Just recognizing that this area of property tax exemptions and reductions is a hot topic right now, and it's better to be safe than sorry.
Further discussion? All right. All those in favor of Senator McEwen's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report it do so with recommendation that House Joint Resolution 4 do pass, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no? No. All right. Well, all those in favor, please go ahead and stand. Five aye. All those opposed, go ahead and stand. Definitely more than five. Thank you. Pursuant to Senate Rule 6-5, having failed a standing division vote, a roll call vote is required. The chief clerk will please call the roll.
Committee of the whole roll call vote for House Joint Resolution number 4. Anderson? Aye. Aye. Barlow? No. Boner? Aye. Brennan? No. Case? No. Cooper? No. Craigo? No. Crum excused. Dockstetter? No. Driscoll? No. French? Aye. Baru? No. Hicks? No. Hutchings conflict? Conflict, aye? Aye. Aye. Jones? No. Cole? No. Landon? No. Larson? No. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Olson?
No.
No. Pappas? No. Pearson? No. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? No. Scott? No. Smith? No. Steinmetz? Nethercott?
Excused.
Excused. Steinmetz?
Excused.
Excused. President Beitman? No. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Joint Resolution number 4, 6 aye, 21 no, 3 excused, 1 conflict.
House Joint Resolution 4, having failed a roll call vote pursuant to Senate Rule 6-5A, is deemed indefinitely postponed. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 94. The reading clerk will please read the bill.
House Bill 94, Charter School Authorizations, Amendments, an act relating to education, sponsored by Representative Andrew, Was referred to committee number 4, which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes Senators Brennan, Olson, Schuler, and Scott. No, Senator Rothfuss. Senator Schuler, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Schuler?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that House Bill 94 do pass. And I believe the good senator from Cheyenne is going to take this bill on, but I would go ahead and move.
Let's have it
the
read
amendment.
in. Let's
Yeah,
have it read in first.
yeah.
House Bill 94, Standing Committee Amendment number 1, page 2, line 1, delete.
Go ahead, Senator Schuler.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll go ahead and move that amendment, Standing Committee Amendment number 1 to House Bill 94, even though you haven't maybe looked at the bill real closely. All we did on this, on page 2 and 3, was just delete March 15th, 2025, and inserted July 1st, 2025. This was an ask by the charter schools. They thought it would be better for them to implement this by using that date. So I'm happy to answer any questions on it. I hope you move this amendment forward.
Any discussion on the Standing Committee Amendment? Okay, we are voting on Standing Committee Amendment number 1 to House Bill 94. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. That amendment has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Senator Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have before us House Bill 94, Charter School Authorization Amendments. Mr. Chairman and fellow senators, currently in our statutes, we have a Charter School Authorization Board. However, they can't authorize any more charter schools until 2029. So what this bill does is that removes that 2029 date and allows the Charter School Authorizing Board to begin authorizing charter schools July 1st of 2025. And that's the basics of the bill, and I ask for your support.
Any discussion? Senator Schuler.
Sorry.
Maybe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just not quite as quick as the good senator over there from Gillette, but one question on this. I was a little nervous this morning about opening it wide open. I don't think the sky's going to fall and we're going to have, tons of folks jumping on board with charter schools all over the state, but with everything that we've done with our budget, I'm a little nervous about funding. Our charter schools have been costing a little more than what was anticipated. So I just wanted to mention, and I talked to some of the charter school people today, I'll probably bring an amendment, and so it will probably come in tomorrow on a second reading amendment. And I think it's a reasonable one just to take a look at a number, whether it be just up to 2 a year, or up to 3 a year, something like that. But I just wanted to mention that. The bill, other than that, is in pretty good shape. Thank you.
Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think, I guess I'm a little confused about, one, I'd like to know what the repealer is. Section 3 has a repealer. This is out of, I guess, non-codified statute. So that would be helpful, and I don't happen to have that white book here with me. And then the other one, when you go up above on page 2, is Section 4. Why are we worrying about whether there's 3 or 4 right now? Do we already have 4, and we're just updating this to that we have 4? And if we do have 4, why? Because it would look to me like statute didn't authorize that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just answer the last one, and I'll encourage you to vote for it. We'll look for the amendment. I think it may get us to a different place, so we can anticipate that. As far as the fourth one, that was in the budget last year. That would be the Alpine Charter School up in the Great Senator in the corners end up there at Alpine and Alta. It made it where they could actually do that last year. So that's what that was. We moved it from 3 to 4 last year. This just moves the dates just a little bit on it, but it leaves it in place. So it was something we all approved. We didn't jump up and put one in and then go ask for approval later. We actually put it in the budget. And that fourth one, by the way, is still not in place. They're still negotiating back and forth to put it together. So hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Senator Landon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just my question just revolves around throwing the door open. I'm just curious how many charter schools we've got knocking on the door. That's going to come into play on school facilities. It's going to come into play in other ways. I'm just wondering what the hurry is, if we've already got them lined up and knocking on the door. So thank you.
Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was a no in committee, and I appreciate some of the proposed amendments that are coming forward will assuage some of the concerns. The concern I had is, while the motivation for the legislation, where we do have a statewide authorizing charter school board that's incapable of authorizing charter schools effectively, that's a legitimate problem. Makes sense that you'd want to address that. You think about what the bill does, it removes any cap, so it eliminates it, and it then allows a statewide authorized charter school board to create new schools, which means a significant additional appropriation, and it doesn't come back to the legislature at any point. There's no approval process. So it allows this appointed board to obligate the state through the school foundation program to fund additional new schools at, a minimum of $1.5 million a pop, but it can range much higher than that of additional cost. So when you just think about the workflow there, we don't usually do things like that. A lot of times it'll run through a committee like the Select School Facilities Committee, Education Committee, Appropriations. Somebody typically has oversight over the creation of a new entity that's going to cost millions of dollars. In this instance, there would be no such oversight. It doesn't come back to the legislature. So while I don't disagree, there probably won't be a runaway circumstance where 100 new charter schools are created next year. We know that's not going to be the case. But even if it's 5 that are created in 1 year, which would be rather significant but plausible, you might be booking $15 to $25 million of additional expense on behalf of the State School Foundation Program, and it doesn't actually come back to this body in any way for approval. So that's a little bit disconcerting, whereas previously we had a little bit of a cap on it, and we were approving, all right, we'll do 2 more. We'll do 2 more, something along those lines. We'll be able to keep track of it. And, so the idea of trying to have some cap, even if we're extending that cap, is, in my opinion, Mr. Chairman, more reasonable than a full removal where we abrogate our authority as the legislature to control the budget on the order of millions of dollars. We don't do that with the executive branch. We don't do that with anyone else. I don't know why we would do it now, all of a sudden, because we like charter schools, to completely abrogate our authority over the budget and allow this board to basically make multi-million-dollar decisions without legislative oversight.
Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did ask the state superintendent kind of to look into her crystal ball to kind of see if she had any ideas on how many folks around the state might be considering, applying for charter schools. She really couldn't tell me that, and I understand that. But right now, I guess the genesis for this bill is mainly that right now, the way that it's set up, there would only be 2028, an application would be able to be put in for a charter school. Probably would be 2029 before one could be approved. And so I think the charter school folks feel like that, they're doing pretty well with what they've got going, and they just want to not wait until 28 or 29 to be able to apply for another charter school. So that's the genesis behind it.
Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, and talking about the finances here, and this is a problem we have generally in the school financial system and the operating side. We're locked into the results of a formula, and we need to reclaim legislative management over that. I think it's a problem, Mr. Chairman, the recalibration committee needs to deal with. The principal sources of the increase are twofold. One, our system, for a lot of things, reimburses. It assumes you've got the working capital to pay it to start with, and then reimburses your expenses. Only works if you've got the working capital. A new charter school doesn't have that, so you have to furnish that. Just the way our system works. We need to deal with that, Mr. Chairman. Second, with the you have a double counting of students with the 3-year rolling average provision, and that needs to be looked at pretty hard, because we're switching students from the traditional school district to the charter school, and the result of that 3-year rolling average is that those students get double counted. And that really is an issue that ought to be taken up by the recalibration committee. And frankly, Mr. Chairman, while I'm on my feet, a lot of the impetus behind the charter school comes from parents whose students are not being adequately dealt with by the existing schools. One reason and another, the schools have been unable or unwilling. And I think sometimes it's, from the parents I've talked to, it's been unwilling to deal with children who are having problems, particularly learning how to read. But I think it applies in some of the other areas as well. And that's where the push for the charter schools is in good part coming, Mr. Chairman. And that's something we really do need to fix. And the charter schools is a way of doing it that is clearly constitutional, clearly within our ability to do. And we are taking a lot of precautions in the application process to make sure we're getting good applications, and that the school's likely to succeed, and the parents will take precautions if they don't succeed. They'll deal with that very effectively, Mr. Chairman. So on and for the bill.
Okay, we're on House Bill 94. Further discussion, Senator Landon?
Well, Mr. Chairman, just a couple of things. I don't have any problem. I've always voted for school choice until this year when we took on other issues. But in this particular part of the world, it's just a reminder going forward that we do have some issues coming. And if we throw this door wide open and press a whole bunch of more schools into operation, I think it's going to get here a lot quicker. And what I'm referring to is just the physical side thing. I don't know all of what the good former chairman was talking about in terms of operational, but I do know that on the major maintenance front and the facility front, we've got issues coming, and we don't have this part of the world covered. What we do with these charter schools often is we say, well, we've got an empty building over there. We can put that charter school over there. But there's a reason why that building is empty and mothballed. It's because it wasn't up to speed to begin with, and it was the one chosen by a district somewhere to stand down. And the cost of doing business, of getting that building, Mr. Chairman, back up to operational, oftentimes can be very significant. And we really do not have a handle on all of that. I'm not sure where we intend to go with it. You know, maybe we can begin to touch on it in this coming interim. I hope we can, because it's coming at us. And that doesn't even have anything to say about, what about, you know, we're putting the charter school over in a building that is barely up to snuff, if we can renovate it quality-wise enough, and pretty soon, they're gonna say, well, wait a minute, is that equity? Probably not. So just a few cautions on that front, Mr. Chairman. We do not have a handle on that side of things.
Senator Brennan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think most of the questions that have been asked have indeed been answered. I'm not sure if the exact answer on what we are repealing has been answered. So, although it's been alluded to, so currently the state authorizing board cannot authorize any schools. So we're taking that away so that they can authorize schools. It would indeed remove the cap so that they would be able to approve as many as they would or want, as many as they thought looked good. It does, we heard in testimony, take about 18 months for the approval of a charter school. It is a long and tedious process for that. And as the good chairman of the education committee alluded to, there was discussion as far as in the committee, do we swing the door open or do we crack the door open? And so I would ask us to move this along so that we can look at it and, if necessary, we can definitely look at a second reading amendment to crack the door open instead of swing the door open. So, aye on the bill.
Senator Dockstetter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think we have to worry. There's a lot that goes into a lot that goes into preparing one of these charters. And by passing this, some of you have fears that, well, it'll just, all of a sudden the door's open and away we go. No, there's a lot of work that goes into it, and we have a charter authorizing board that knows how to screen them, knows how to make sure that we have everything in place. And our schools that have everything put together as far as the academics, the arts, and the athletics, they probably don't have to worry. It's our schools that don't. They should maybe be a little concerned, look over their shoulder. But I think this opens up an opportunity to improve education in our state and allow a little more specialty at the same time. On and for the bill.
Any other discussion on House Bill 94? All right. All those in favor of Senator Schuler's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report that it do so with recommendation that House Bill 94 do pass, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. House Bill 94 has passed the committee of the whole. Next bill for our consideration is House Bill 20. The reading clerk will please read the bill.
House Bill 20, K-12 School Facility Leasing, an act relating to K-12 school facility leasing, sponsored by the School Facilities Committee. Was submitted to Committee Number 4, which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Brennan, Rothfuss, Schuler, and Scott. Excuse, Senator Olson, Senator Schuler, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Schuler?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report it, do so with a recommendation that House Bill number 20 do pass. And I do believe the good senator from Albany County is going to talk about this bill.
Senator Rothfuss.
Mr. Chairman, simple little bill from the interim from the School Facilities Select Committee. Mr. Chairman, right now, when we calculate the lease payment for a school that is being leased, which for us is typically a charter school but doesn't have to be a charter school, that lease payment is based on the square footage of the school to be leased multiplied by the market value for that area of a square foot in that market. That provides an expense. The challenge is that the building could be any size. So imagine that you had 50 students in a 50,000 square foot building. You've got a little bit too much building. This legislation amends it so that it is based on the allowable square footage. In other words, we have calculations that determine how much square footage a student ADM needs, and then the payment is based on that to ensure that a leased facility is the right size for the number of students that are in that facility, so that you don't just lease a gigantic building. This conforms with how we do it also for traditional schools in the district, non-leased facilities, where we go to an allowable square footage calculation rather than just a building square footage. And it was a request then by the School Facilities Commission to ensure that we could keep our budgets in line for our leased facilities. Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Senator Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my only question is does this go back into the 135 or 145%, or are they just stuck to it? Because we're allowing our other schools to kind of fudge outside of the lines on this. And would you be open to an amendment to bring in an alignment potentially if it's not? Thank you.
Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the good senator from the northeastern part of the state, it is allowable square footage, so that's a calculation that includes that percentage, which is currently only at 115. We passed a good bill trying to get that up to 135%, which is the right thing to do, but you would be modified by our percentage modifier. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of Senator Schuler's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, they do so with the recommendation that House Bill 20 do pass, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. House Bill 20 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 36. The reading clerk will please read the bill.
House Bill 36 engrossed Hathaway Scholarships Amendments, an act relating to the Hathaway Scholarship Program sponsored by Representative Harshman, was referred to Committee Number 4, which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes Senators Brennan, Rothfuss, Schuler, and Scott. Excused Senator Olson, Senator Schuler, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Schuler?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that House Bill 36 do pass. There is a standing committee amendment. If you could read that in, please.
House Bill 36, Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to engrossed copy, page 1, lines 2 and 3, delete.
And with that, I would turn this over to the good senator from Albany County again.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Rothfuss.
And I'm back. Mr. Chairman, House Bill 36 tries to address a concern where we have students that are enrolled in credit-bearing graded courses through our colleges, community colleges for the most part, and they have a work-study program associated with that. So part of their time is working, part of their time is for credit. That credit might be only 3 credit hours in a semester, potentially less than 6 credit hours in a semester. So right now, Hathaway doesn't have a vehicle for that because you don't make satisfactory academic progress. You don't have enough credit hours to meet the Hathaway minimum, even though you're spending a lot of time working on the job. This legislation, the original one, you can see that it was heavily amended because the original bill didn't quite make the point where the amendment gets to the appropriate solution. Goes into the Hathaway statutes and changes the language in such a way that if you're doing one of these programs that has a substantial on-the-job training requirement that includes credit hours towards completion as well, and it's still graded credit hours, that you can utilize the part-time mechanism that is currently in existence for Hathaway to get a portional Hathaway scholarship allowance and still be making satisfactory academic progress. So all this bill does, and the amendment does, I'm actually on the amendment because the amendment
Senator Rothfuss.
rewrites the bill. Yep.
We haven't moved the amendment yet.
It hasn't been moved. I thought Senator Schuler just read it in. My apologies. I move Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to House Bill 36, ask the body's favorable consideration. So you can see as you look through the amendment, which to a large degree rewrites the bill, that it provides this opportunity for on-the-job training and credit hour recovery, and then goes in for most of the bill and simply provides the calculation for how you would determine how much of the Hathaway is available, which is just the number of credit hours being taken as a fraction over 12. So for example, if you were at 6 credit hours, you'd get 50% of that semester's Hathaway, and that's rewritten several times because the Hathaway is divided into 4 different categories. And then page 2 at the top, you see for students enrolled in a program of Wyoming Community College that requires on-the-job training and less than 6 credit hours per semester to receive a certificate, satisfactory academic progress means completing all semester hours that student is enrolled in for the semester, meeting the hourly on-the-job training requirements, and meeting other criteria as established. It provides an allowance then for this on-the-job training to take place, which is currently not allowed if you're taking less than 6 credit-bearing hours during the semester. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on the Standing Committee Amendment. Otherwise, I'd call for the question on the Standing Committee Amendment.
Any discussion on the amendment? Senator Hutchings?
Mr. Chairman, this is pretty significant. You said you're pretty much rewriting the bill. Can you go over that again for me?
Senator Rothfuss?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, it does exactly what the original bill does, it just does it correctly. So the intent is not changed. It's within the title, but when we were working the bill, we actually ended up holding it over to another meeting because it does not accomplish it. As originally written, there is no discussion of what's called satisfactory academic progress. In statute, you have satisfactory academic progress requirements for the Hathaway. So the original bill as written didn't compensate for that or accommodate it, so no student would be allowed to have it for the second semester in a row. So we did it the right way. It is exactly what the bill was intended to do. It just didn't do it the first time. We paused. The sponsor worked with the department, came back with a fixed piece of legislation that now does what it's supposed to do, Mr. Chairman. Happy to answer any other questions.
Senator Scott?
Mr. Chairman, and what happened in committee was the State Department of Education came and said they had challenges with the bill as written. And when we finally smoked them out, asked them could they implement the bill or not, they said they couldn't. And so we had to fix it. How it got all the way to the committee in the second house before that got discovered, I don't know, but it did. And this amendment does fix it. We're not talking about a lot of students, Mr. Chairman. Testimony in committee was to be 10 or 15 at any one time. I think that might be a little low, but we're not talking about a lot of students. But it does keep some of them who are pursuing very useful course of study from being able to participate in the Hathaway system, Mr. Chairman. So on for the bill.
Any other discussion on this bill? Rather, on the amendment. I guess we're still on the amendment. All right, all those in favor of Senator Rothfuss's motion to adopt Standing Committee Amendment number 1 to House Bill 36 signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that amendment has been adopted. Now we're back on the bill. Any discussion on the bill? All right, all those in favor of Senator Schuler's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report that it do so with recommendation that House Bill 36 do pass signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. House Bill 36 has passed the committee of the whole. Madam Majority Floor Leader.
That the committee of the whole rise and report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. That motion has been adopted.
All right. Committee of the whole report.
Mr. President, your Committee of the Whole, having had under considerations bills on general file, begs leave to report as follows. House Bill 211 engrossed, do pass. House Bill 275 engrossed, do pass. House Bill 117 engrossed, do pass amended. House Bill 103 do pass. House Bill 125 do pass. House Bill 129 do pass. House Bill 188 do pass. House Joint Resolution 4 engrossed failed to pass Committee of the Whole and was indefinitely postponed. House Bill 94 do pass amended. House Bill 20 do pass. House Bill 36 engrossed do pass amended. Senator Olson, Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Olson.
I move the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Committee of the Whole report has been adopted. Thank you, Senator Olson. All right, looks like I got a couple more signing of enrolled acts here. Senate Enrolled Act number 30.
Senate Enrolled Act number 30 being original Senate File 75, Coroner Investigations, Disposition of Decedent's Property, an act relating to county coroners.
I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 30 being original Senate File 75. I have so signed. All right. There it is. Congratulations. Senate Enrolled Act number 31.
Senate Enrolled Act number 31 being original Senate File 114, Missing Persons Reporting Requirements, an act of criminal procedure.
I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 31, being original Senate File 114. I'm so signed. Okay, do we have any messages? Looks like we have a couple messages. Randy, go ahead and read those in.
From the House of Representatives, Mr. President, the following messages are dated February 24, 2025. Message number 354, concurrence requested. Senate File 43, temporary water use agreements amendments, passed the House on third reading in an amended form. Ayes 56, noes 3, excused 3. The House respectfully asks Senate to concur by adopting amendments. Message number 355, concurrence passed. Mr. President, the House did concur on Senate amendments to House Bill number 226, License Plate Search and Rescue Council. Ayes 58, noes 2, excused 2. Signed, Katie Talbot, House Chief Clerk.
Thank you. What else we have over there, Randy? We have committee reports.
Mr. President, the following reports are dated February 24, 2025. Committee number 3, Revenue, to whom was referred House Bill 282, engrossed property tax acquisition value, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes Senators French, Ide, and McEwen. No Senators Case and Pappas. Senator McEwen, Chairman. Committee number 1, Judiciary, to whom was referred House Bill 273, Wyoming Pregnancy Centers Autonomy and Rights, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes Senators Craigle, Kolb, and Olson. Excused Senators Crum and Hicks. Senator Olson, Chairman. Committee number 1, Judiciary, to whom was referred House Bill 324, engrossed state elected officials, employees at will and regulations. Respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes Senators Kolb and Olson. No Senator Craigle. Excused Senators Crum and Hicks. Senator Olson, Chairman.
Thank you, Randy. All right, well, I believe that clears the desk. Madam Majority Floor Leader. Oh, wait 1 second. I do have a correction on a joint conference committee lineup for Senate File, or House Bill 199. Conferees are Olson, Chairman, Senators, help me out, Brennan and Rothfuss. Thank you, Chairman Olson. Senator Case.
Mr. President, before we get the announcement, may I have the privilege of the floor?
You bet.
Mr. President, I'm just announcing that there was a fairly valuable earring found down, I guess on the ground floor of the Capitol. It's
No,
for
wasn't
pierced
mine.
earrings, and it might have some nice rocks in it, Mr.
Okay.
And it's in the LSO office.
Okay, thank
Found
you
it
for
there.
that. All right. If you're missing an earring, you know where to go. All right, back to you, Madam Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Tuesday, February 25th.
Adjourned until 10 a.m. Tuesday. Any announcements? Looks like Senator Anderson's raring to go here.
Mr. President, yes, we have a joint conference committee right after we and the House get done on House Bill 28. We'll meet in room 113. That is Senator Anderson, Cooper, and Kolb. We'll meet with Tarver, Banks, and Wiley. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Senator Case.
Mr. President, we're going to continue work that we began this morning in your committee number 7, Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions. We're about done with House Bill 144, County Canvassing Board. We'll move on to House Bill 122, engross Senior Citizen Service Districts, authorization and renewal. House Bill 176, engross vacancies in public office amendments. House Bill 190, engross bond election language process. House Bill 249, engross runoff elections. We're not going to go that late tonight. We still have another day, so we'll probably go to about 6:30. We'll just see what we get done. Thank you.
Still a lot of work. Thank you so much. Oh, let's go to Senator Pappas next.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just want to remind everybody that tomorrow morning, we will have a joint conference committee for Senate File 33 engrossed, which is the non-citizen driver's license and ID card revisions. Your committee is myself as chair, Kolb and Case. And we'll be meeting with Representative Pendergraph, Filer, and Yin. Then at 8:15, we do have another joint conference committee on Senate File 32, which is unpaved roads, speed limits, and amendments. And that is with myself, Kolb, and Rothfuss. We'll be meeting with Representative Geringer, Nicholas, and Singh. And both of those will be in room 110. 110 down in this building. Then at 9 o'clock, your highways, your Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs Committee will meet in room W002 in the extension to consider House Bill 246 engrossed, Wyoming, Wednesday.
Thank you. Over to you, Senator Landon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources Committee will meet in the morning, 8 o'clock, to take up the following three bills. House Bill 299, engrossed, online sports wagering amendments. House Bill 307, engrossed, poll watchers, polling station observation. And House Bill 280, sex offender registration if time permits. And Mr. President, your Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, Cultural Resources Committee will meet with the other side, joint committee on Wednesday at noon in the historic Supreme Court room to consider interim topics.
All right, thank you. Senator Olson. Your committee number 1, Judiciary, will meet tomorrow upon noon recess in W002 and online to consider two House bills, House Bill 171, Sexual Exploitation of Children Amendments, and House Bill 227, Executive Order Time Limitations. Thank you. Vice President Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, there will be a JCC on Senate File 69, which is the homeowner property tax exemption, at 7 a.m. in room 113 with our House partners, Senator Guru, Senator McEwen, and myself. Secondly, the Senate Appropriations will be meeting upon noon recess tomorrow in room 113. We'll be dealing with 4 bills: House Bill 270, Permanent Mineral Trust Fund Spending Policy; House Bill 271, Common School Account Spending Policy Amount; House Bill 293, Repealing the School Foundation Program Reserve Account; and finally, House Bill 294, Federal Mineral Royalties Distribution Amendments. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Senator McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Upon adjournment of both chambers, there will be a joint conference committee on House Bill 11, Manufacturing Sales and Use Tax Exemption Amendments. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. All right, you've all heard the Majority Floor Leader's motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. Senate will stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Tuesday morning.